If you have not done it so far, if you can please sign up for the STEP program. Yes, the link is below. So today we will be making more math operators, making more blocks that do more math functions. Basically, we're going to be creating a more powerful math library. Let's dive right in.
All right, so we're going to work through Unit 4, Lab 4, Making Computers Do Math, page 3, and more mathematical reporters. Let's start out here with the sum from, well, in this case, sum from 4 to 6, it says here, and you'll get an answer of 15. So basically what it's doing is that it's adding 4 plus 5 plus 6. So it's adding numbers between 4 to 6. To do this, we're going to have to do quite a few steps in creating this block because we're actually going to be creating a list. So let's just go through it. In the instructions, it asks you to do import U2 L4 math libraries, the previous one that you worked on. There'll be a link below in case you don't have it. And you'll already have some of these blocks already created, but we're going to be making a new block. So for our block, so we go here, we're in operators, we're going to make a block. We're going to do an operator, and we're going to type it out, right? So sum, well, let's spell it right. Sum from blank to blank. Okay. And this is going to be a reporter because it's going to report something back to us. And we'll do it for all sprites. So we'll say, okay. So we're going to do from, sum from, and then here we're going to add, we'll say number 1, right? The first number we're going to create. Input name. Let's go over here and we'll say that this is going to be, we can leave it as any type. It could be any type or number. Okay. And then here we'll do num2. So basically we're creating these variables, number 1, num2, num1 and num2. And then we're going to use these later on to report something. So one of the first things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to actually script a variable. So to script a variable, we get that in the variables tab. So we're going to put this script a variable here. And what we're doing is that we're actually writing a script within the block. So let's call this script, right? The thing that we're creating here, we're going to call this a list of numbers. Numbers, right? Because basically what the script is going to do is create a list of numbers that is from number 1 to number 2. So we're creating a list of numbers, and then we're going to set, right? We're going to bring this guy in. We're going to set list of numbers to a list or an array, right? So here we bring this in, and we're going to just remove that piece. So we're just saying the variable list of numbers, we're going to create it and make it a list. And now we're going to iterate it. So we're going to take this function for I, right? For I equal to num1 to num2, right? And then we're going to go to add, here it is, add I, add I, let's remove it from here, remove it, add I to list of numbers, right? So let's just take a look at what we're doing here. We're going to script a variable. So we're going to make a script called list of numbers. Okay, great. We're going to set list of numbers to be a list, right? And then we're going to say what's going to go inside that list. And we use this all the time if we need to iterate through something, like if we need to iterate through numbers and we want to iterate through number 1 to number 2. So if it's going from the number 1, actual value of 1, to the number 5, right? With this script, what it's going to do is that it's going to create a list, and the list is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be every integer between these two numbers. That's what this does. So it adds I to list of numbers and it iterates, right? And now we're going to report back that list of numbers. So we're going to combine them. So here we're going to combine this list of numbers. Let's make it a little bigger so we can see it. And combine this list of numbers, right? And then we're going to use an operator, which is addition, right? So basically this is saying combine all the lists of numbers that we created for this part of the script, and then we're going to work with that list of numbers and use the operator of plus to add them all together. Okay, so apply. Okay, so now if we see down here, we'll see sum from blank to blank. So if I put sum from 1 to 3, right, and I click it, it's going to be 6. Let's click it again, because that's 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, right? So if I do 1 to 4, and I click on it, that's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. So that's how you create this block, sum from blank to blank. So here we created this block, but we could also do this manually. And I'm going to do it just to show you how it works if it was being done manually, right? So that same combine function we're using right here, right? We're combining something that's within this list, right? We can actually do it manually, right? We can put list here and we use the operator plus, right? So in this, sum from 1 to 4 is the same as putting a list 1, right? And then you add the second value in the list, 2, and the third value in the list, 3, and the fourth value in the list, which is 4, right? That's the same thing that we did in the script. So if we click on this and we look at it, right, this script is actually doing that same thing. This part where it says set list to list, iterate I equal num to num2, right, add I to list of numbers, right? That's exactly the same as us manually adding the number 1, 2, 3, 4 into this list, and then using this combine function to combine it all with the plus operator. So as you can see, if I click on here, sum from 1 to 4 equals 10. And if I do it here, combine list 1, 2, 3, 4, using addition or using plus, is equal to 10 as well. So the next one we'll look at is this maximum of, in here, in this case, they're showing 6 and 4, right? So we're trying to do some kind of operation that evaluates which number is greater. Let's go over here. We're going to create a block, right? So let's go to make a block, right? And we're going to do a reporter and an operator, and we'll say, okay. Actually, we got to write it in, forgot. Max of blank and blank. So we do okay, right? Max of blank. So we'll say num1, okay, and num2. Okay. So instead of just reporting one thing, we're going to report two different things, right? So we're going to have to do an if statement, an if or else statement. So we're going to drag in that if else statement here, if else, right? And then this reporter, we're going to have to do duplicated. So we're going to have two different reporters, right? So what we're doing is we're going to compare num1 to num2. In that comparison, we're going to use the operator of greater than. So let's look for greater than. Here we go. So if num1 is greater than num2, we're going to report num1. If it is not greater than num2, which means it's less than, which means that num2 is actually greater than num1, we're going to report num2. Pretty simple, actually. So we're just, all this is doing is an if statement. We're comparing a number 1 to see if it's greater than number 2. If it is, then we know the max number is num1. If num1 is not the max number, we're going to report num2 because that's the only other option. So we do apply, okay. Go down to our blocks here, max of, right? So max of, so if we put max of 1 and 2, and here we click on it, it'll say 2 because it did the comparison. Is 1 greater than 2? No. So it shows 2. If we do max 3 and 2, and we click on it, it's going to show us 3. And the comparison is, right, let's look at the actual script that, or block or script that we created, right? Num1, which is 3, is greater than num2, which is 2. So it's going to report num1, which is 3. So that's how that one works. So now let's take a look at how we would do a max of a list as opposed to just 2 variables, right? So we'll have to go here in the variables and we're going to make a special block. Actually, I already made it, but let me erase it. So delete block. Yes, okay. So make a block, right? And we're going to do max of a list. And we'll do it as a list, reporter, because we're going to report something back. We'll say, okay, right? And then here, we're going to do max of list. We click on the plus sign, and we're going to create the variable, right, that we're going to input. So it's going to be a list. So we'll just call it max list, right? Max list. Click on the little arrow, and we're going to set it to list, right? So when you do this, create the input name, you also here define what type of information you're putting in. And in this case, we're going to be putting in a list. Okay. So now we're going to report back. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to first combine them, right? So we're going to go to this combine. If I could find it, here it is. So we're going to go to combine. We're going to combine this max list, right? And we're going to use an operator to help us out. And the operator we're going to use is actually max of blank and blank, which is the one we already created. So this is pretty nifty because you created the max of blank and blank before, and now you're using that in a new block for lists as opposed to just 2 integers. So we do apply, okay. Go to variables, should be here, max of list, right? And we can go ahead and put list in here, and let's just write a couple numbers. So 2, right, 4, 3, maybe 7, right? So we have these 3, and we want to see what's the max of all of these. So we click on it, and it reports back 7. So what this is doing is actually doing all the operations that we set up here, right? All of these operations. It's doing it, but with the numbers that are within this list. It's pretty, so this is how you're able to create code, right? So you create this simple code, and then you use this simple code in creating more complex code. And that's really the basics of programming, of how we're able to create these larger systems. We know max of blank and blank works. We can build out from that and create other applications. So now that you know how to do max of list, I'm going to let you guys go ahead and work on minimum of list. You could take a look at the code in maximum of list. Obviously, you're going to have to create if we haven't already created this maximum of blank and blank, minimum of blank and blank. So if you create minimum of blank and blank, you can use that within the minimum of list. So go ahead and work on that independently. And then right now I'm going to go over sum of list, the code we would use for sum of list. All right, so let's make a block. Let's do it again, and I have to use list. So sum of a list, right? So we go to list and we do reporter. Okay, right, sum of list. And then here we're gonna say sum list. So we're just giving it the name sum list. All right, and we're gonna set that to list. And press OK. And then we're gonna report back, and we're gonna use the same function we used before, which is the combine function. So combine, we're gonna combine this sum list. Now remember, sum list is just a variable name, right? I could have called this X, I could have called this Y, I could have called this list. I could give it any name I want, but I called it sum list because it's a way for me to remember. This is the list that we're gonna use to the sum list, or the list that we're gonna use for this particular function, right? And then we're just gonna add an operator, which is the plus operator, right? So this is saying combine all the numbers within this list and use the operator plus. So add all the numbers within this list. So we'll do apply. Okay, we go back to variables, we look at this sum of list, right? And we put the list here. Okay, and we can just put the list ourselves, like 1, and we can put another thing, 2, and then 3 and 4, right? So if we click on it, we get 10 because 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 10, which is essentially what we did with these other ones, right? So, and as I say, there's many ways to skin a cat, which is a horrible way to say things, but there's several ways to do the same thing, right? So here we did sum from 1 to 4. We created this block equals 10. Here we created the block sum of lists, right? And we manually put the numbers in this list, right? And here is basically the raw code that's within this, this function. So here combined list using the plus operator is within this code. So if we take a look at it, let's just take a look at it real quick again. You see, it is exactly the same, right? So this, instead of, here we put the list in manually ourselves, here it's gonna pull in the list that you put in here, right? Okay, cancel. So that's important to remember. So like we could take this out, right? And say, so say we created a list ourselves, right? Let me move these down here, right? We can create a list ourselves. So let's make a variable and we'll call it random list, or crazy list. Crazy list. We'll just call it crazy list. Like I said, you can call it anything, right? So here we have crazy list, right? We can set crazy list to be a list. So we put this, and if we get rid of this block, we're saying we're going to set crazy list to be an empty list. And then we're going to do this operation where we do for I equal to 1, 2, let's just stick with 3 so that we don't have too many variables, right? We're going to do add, where is my add, right? We're going to add, and then we'll say, let's just pick a random number. So pick a random number from 1 to 10, and we're gonna put that in the crazy list. So here. So, right? So we're gonna make that crazy list. So if we click on this, right? Here's our crazy list, and it randomly put the numbers 3, 10, and 3,
right? So now we have this crazy list of numbers, and we can take crazy list and put it in sum of list, and it's going to be 16. It's going to be 16 because 3 plus 10 plus 3 equals 16. So that's how you can use this sum of list function, and you can bring in different lists, right? So you can use this with other functions that you create and different lists and create and use it for different functions. I will let you guys try to work out this average of list, right? So you're gonna have to figure out how would you average it? Average these numbers. What things do you need to do in order to average it? So go ahead and work on that independently. All right, until next time, bye-bye.